Pacific Mornings with Will on 531 PI.
Hello, Oloketa, and welcome back to Pacific Mornings. JP here, taking you until 9 a.m. today. Now, what does the Pacific look like when we control the camera? Fight for the Pacific is the first Pacific-led series commissioned by Jazeera English, and it puts issues like climate, colonialism, and geopolitics into the hands of those living in it. Now, filmed across 10 nations and featuring more than 30 Pacific contributors, it's directed by BAFTA-nominated Samoan filmmaker Tuki Laumea, who joins us right now to talk about reclaiming the narrative and why this series matters. Talofa malo soifua, Tuki, and welcome to the show.
Naro soifua. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to have you on the Polokalame Uso. Firstly, let's start with Fight for the Pacific. What's it about, and tell us about the motivation about this project.
So really, it's about the geopolitical situation in the Pacific. God, it sounds like a big word at this time of the morning. But, really looking at how the effects of China and Australia, New Zealand and the US and their kind of, their meddling in amongst all of our own Pacific nations, and how that affects us as Pacific people, but really focus just on us. That's the important thing, is us as people, not all the politics, not all the kind of going back and forth in the media. It's just really looking at everyday people, and how much is this affecting us, the cost, for cost of a loaf of bread or anything like that. And so that's what it is in a nutshell. And it sounds a little bit complicated, but it's actually really not. And I guess the motivation was actually just in terms of, it's been something that I've always kind of been interested in, and it is something that affects all of us a lot. And we hear a lot about it. We hear about China and the Solomon Islands with their military deal. We've heard a lot about China and the cookies lately. And so, I think it's a story that never goes away, but it's also, one that actually affects us quite deeply. Even sometimes people don't quite realize how much.
I can relate as well with growing up in Tonga with the Chinese community there, with the businesses and shops and whatnot. But this is a Pacific-led documentary that you worked on. Tell us more about what you mean by that.
Well, for starters, I guess it's us. We're Pacific, and that is, the most important thing when you're telling a Pacific story or any Indigenous story, that is led by someone of that culture or of those cultures. And so, that's where it starts, is that, because I'm Samoan, I don't, obviously can't speak for all of the Pacific, but we all have shared experiences, and we all have shared, cultural values and these kinds of things. And then, so that's a start on a global stage in terms of actually telling a story like this. But then, it's Pacific-led, and in all of those places, there's incredible people that obviously have to help us make this, and they're all Pacific. We made a point of only hiring Pacific people to make it, when at all possible. Of course, there's always going to be one or two spots where you can't quite do that. But also, everyone in the films, they're all Pacific. Apart from some of the contributors aren't, but everybody really kind of understands the perspective that we're trying to push from a Pacific perspective.
Yeah, Malo ngā loe, Uso. Let's talk about the nations covered or represented in this project. 10 nations. Tell us about the responsibility of representing these diverse regions, from Kanaki to Kiribati, in 4 episodes.
It's the responsibility of it's
no pressure.
It's pretty big. You do realize that, as you go through these places, that there's a lot at stake for people. There's a lot at stake for us. And Al Jazeera, I don't know if the audience knows, but that's a huge platform. That's 400 million people across the world watching it. It's available in every single country all over the world. And so anyone can see this. And that's the most eyeballs you can get on something. And so, I really realized that we could elevate people's voices. And so it is a big responsibility, but also, it's very easy because people are very good telling their own stories. You know, they're the experts in their stories, and you know, at the end of the day, we're just conduits to try and help people to express that, and you know, really embody, you know, the perspective of them. And so, yes, it's a responsibility, and it weighs a little bit heavy, but also, you know, I guess you just honor that by just trying to stay as true as possible to whatever anyone is trying to tell you, unless it's a politician, and then I'm not staying true to what I'm going.
Now, some of the issues explored from colonial legacies, nuclear trauma, geopolitical tensions, and sensitive in the ongoing issues around that. Were there any moments during the filming, you know, where the emotion and the weight of these stories, you know, kind of hit or resonate with you?
Man, those are big words for this time in the morning again.
Good morning, Aotearoa. Good
I say
morning.
that even when you say that, I start going, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" Nah,
How did you take in all this, the stories and their people's, you know, personal sharings with you?
I found them, yeah, I found it like a very kind of cathartic experience, you know, where I really got to know a lot of very incredible people. I met a lot of really smart, really interesting people with incredible opinions and views.
Yeah.
And I think for me, on a personal level, definitely helped me kind of open up my perspective on some things that I probably didn't have before I started. But I also met some people like had incredible hardships. I mean, one of the men that we were working with in Kanaki, New Caledonia, which I mean was probably the hardest place I went in terms of what's going on for them.
Yeah.
You know, we're driving around and he was actually our translator. And then I was just like, oh, you know, Cleo, my wife, who I made this with as well, she's a journalist too. She said, well, what's your story? And then it turns out that he was the hotel manager at the Meridian Hotel. And then once the uprising happened, he lost his job because there's no tourists coming in, and he's just living in a tent on the side of the road. And so, you know, there we are, we're spending our afternoon in you know, next to a tent, just kind of absorbing this man's story. And but you know, he was so like in himself, confident that this was all a part of what they needed to go through to get their own sovereignty, to get their independence, that it was really quite incredible to see someone with that much conviction.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one thing is covering the story, but being there on the ground and meeting and hearing these stories directly from the local people, it's different, isn't it? Let's talk about the global media environment. How did producing this series with Al Jazeera Kataki, challenge or affirm your expectations around international collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked a lot with Al Jazeera before, and I've actually spent most of my time working in things overseas.
Yeah.
But what it did do is it working with Al Jazeera in particular affirmed the fact that you know, I realized that they really were interested in hearing what we had to say as Pacific people, which is very rare in the world, because we know we're important down here, right? But you know, we are in a little bit of a bubble, and in the rest of the world, they don't really care about us other than our geopolitical, you know, geographical situation, or our resources, or you know, our people in a workforce or something. So, you know, Al Jazeera were very much, they very much let us lead with what we like, our perspective of the Pacific and the voices within the story. And there was not a lot of talk around what should be going in, what should be going out. It was more around, you know, helping with the narrative, and so they just very much left us to that, which you don't often get, even, you know, even here in New Zealand. That's very unusual.
Yeah.
And so that to me was a very kind of uplifting experience, where I was like, wow, we actually have an opportunity to let these people talk for themselves.
No, that's fantastic. Now, the series puts frontline communities at the centre of big, complex topics like climate change, foreign debt, militarization. How do you avoid oversimplifying, you know, while still making it accessible to our global audience?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because again, it's like sometimes I hear those words and I'm like, oh my God, you know, I don't think I'm that different to a lot of other people where we just switch off because it's like, that sounds really complicated. Yeah, I think you know, what it really is about, again, it's just about being grounded in people like us, you know, who are actually just living through it daily. And through their stories, we get to learn about whatever the issue is, and that simplifies it enough. But also, we have other voices in there that really kind of reaffirm how it all is playing out. But I think, because it is so complicated, the reality is that we don't get to hear a lot of it from our perspective.
Yeah.
We're often very much just an afterthought when you start hearing about China, when you start hearing about the US, Australia, and New Zealand. They don't consider us. We're just like a little pawn, that they're moving their kind of pieces around on a big chessboard. And so, that to me was important.
Yeah. When you're filming 30 voices across 10 countries, you're speaking to officials like presidents, to rural market vendors. How do you make sure the story doesn't, default to those with the loudest or most official voices?
Yeah, that's a good question. The reality, I think, obviously, I'm always dubious of what a politician's got to say or a president. Like, this is my back. I'm a journalist, right? So, I'm always going to take whatever any politician is saying with a grain of salt. That's not to say that they're not good people or that they're not trying to do good things for us, but often there's always some sort of ulterior motive. So for me, like, everything that I've done, doesn't matter if it's in Bahrain or Africa or, Samoa, Tonga, here in Aotearoa. The most interesting things to me are real, just normal people. Those are the people that I'm most interested in. I'd have very little interest in who the the big dog is. Like, that's boring. That's dull. We've heard that story before. And so, to me, it just comes naturally, because that's what I want to know about. I don't want to know about what the Prime Minister's got to say, because I can get that in a press release.
Well, let's talk about the response since you've released it with the Pacific audience and international viewers. What have you heard, or what are people sharing?
Yeah, so it's it's 4 parts. The first episode is gone. The next episode is out in about 2.5 hours, live on Al Jazeera, and then the link comes tomorrow. But the response has been really positive, and I guess especially from the diaspora community, because they've, a lot of people overseas often they don't get to see themselves on screen. Oh, yeah. And so there's been a lot of people that have kind of said that this is probably the most objective documentary they've seen on the subject so far, like in the Pacific, which that means a lot, because that's what we try and do as journalists, is be objective and storytellers. And also, a lot of people that I never would have thought would have come out, or my Palangi side of the family came out, that I haven't heard from about 30 years ago. Hey, we saw you and we saw this, and it's incredible, and we're really proud, and that someone can actually bring this story to the world. So the response has been really good, and I feel like it's going to get better, because it's very balanced, and there's lots of really interesting perspectives, especially once we start getting to Tonga and Hawaii, which is in this episode coming out. And I'm very grateful for all the lovely things that have been said.
Yeah, malo ngā we. Now, what do you hope this series will shift in media and policy, or even just people's understanding of our region, the Pacific?
Yeah, I mean, for us in the Pacific, I just hope that it makes it a little bit clearer about what is going on, how it affects us, and then also how we're receiving our information, and how we're digesting it, and how we're putting that back out into our own communities. On a global or political scale, I mean, obviously you can always wish for something. I would like that it meant that we had more Pacific voices at the table to make decisions that impact us. Oh, yeah. That's might sound like a pipe dream, and maybe it is, but maybe it's not. But also I think we all play a part in just adding a little bit to the social conscious as we go. Every little thing that I do, every little thing that you do and put out into the world, little thing that, someone going to school and writing a poem about, their homeland or whatever. We're all collectively putting something together that will make a difference in the end. And, my voice is just as loud as their voice. And I just think over time, it'll shift perspectives, and it'll make a difference if all of us talk.
Where can people watch this important series, Fight for the Pacific?
Well, I think probably the easiest way is if you jump on our socials at Nine Islands Media, because we just pop up all the links. And Al Jazeera is available to everyone everywhere in the world. I mean, I think it's on Freeview here.
Yeah.
You can just jump onto their website, and it streams live just straight to your phone. And so, it's playing 10:30 a.m. here in New Zealand today, and also 8:30 p.m. tonight, and then it rolls out about another 10 times during the week.
Nice.
On Al Jazeera. But as of tomorrow, there'll just be a YouTube or link that you can just click on and watch it. And yeah, and I hope everyone watches all 4 episodes, not just the ones, because it's a whole piece of work. You know what I mean? It's talking about lots of different perspectives, and in order to understand all of it, you really kind of need to absorb all of it, because it's very diverse voices too.
Well, congratulations, dear brother. I look forward to watching the next episode. Our love and congratulations to you, your wife and your team, Malo and Awe.
Yeah, thanks for having me, JP. Appreciate it, man.
Manuela was also.